Welcome back to another edition of the Gentleman's Hour. I am Joshua Fers, and of course, my colleague,
Tom
my
Shoaff.
buddy, my pal, my co-host, Mr. Tom Shoaff.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Gentleman's Hour. It is it's time for another drool-worthy conversation.
Yeah, I mean, and speaking of drool-worthy, I've been a bit under the weather today, so please forgive me if I seem a little bit out of touch. And we were just talking about this. I have nothing to toast. I'm on water today. I'm on water duty. So there's
okay.
It's
Ting,
flavored
ting.
water. So there's our toast for the show here.
Ting ting. I hope you feel better, good sir.
Thanks, man. It's got like some vitamins and stuff in it, and all kinds of good,
Perfect.
all kinds of goodness to hopefully make me feel even better. But we appreciate you for joining us. And by the way, I just wanted to make this, give this notice right up front. Our YouTube channel is up and running. Obviously, we still have the Facebook, so we have two avenues. We will eventually have more avenues, and kind of, as we start to flesh this thing out, and get more content, and kind of see where we're kind of seeing where everybody's listening, seeing what everybody's interests are, because certain platforms kind of give us different results, and it's the whole just world of putting content out there. It's interesting to see what kind of people bite at, and what kind of people take a little nibble, and what kind of people say, hey, you know what, I like what you did last time. And that's okay. But go check out our YouTube. We got the link right on our Facebook page. Go check it out. Please go subscribe, follow, all that good stuff, and that way each and every time we post. Today we're going to be kind of talking about some crazy stuff again. I know once again a crazy interest of mine. I get stuck down a YouTube rabbit hole. I think me and Tom have kind of talked about this
every time.
We go down these rabbit holes, and one of the ones that I know a lot of people have talked about before is like, the huge ancient blocks, how they built the pyramids, how they built Stonehenge, how they built all these different civilizations over the years were building these giant, massive structures way before there was any, the modern day tools and machinery that we can barely, build these type of massive structures with. How were they doing it? What were they doing? How, is it alien technology? Is it just ancient technology that we aren't aware of? Is it, they talk about how, Atlantis had this really advanced technology, but all got washed away in one of the floods. And I mean, you could go down all of these different, avenues and rabbit
holes.
Yeah, just rabbit hole after rabbit hole after rabbit hole after rabbit hole. And
yeah, I mean, well, I'm really excited about this one because I have been fascinated by the pyramids for as long as I can remember.
For sure.
And one of the biggest things with the pyramid, or biggest myths, is like how they did it supposedly as fast as they did. Supposedly it took 20 years. And at the pace and the size, they would have to cut, quarry, transport, and place something like one stone every 9 minutes, which, if you think about that in today's terms, is impossible. Like, we just can't do it. So that's always been something that's been incredibly fascinating to me. And the more that I've researched it, and the more that I've looked into it, the more you find out about these other civilizations and these other ancient communities that have just been forgotten in history. And unless you are in the area or in the country, so to speak, you really don't know about it or hear much about it. And that's where this video is going to touch on, because there are a lot of really cool things that this guy talks about. And the grand scheme, the moral of the whole story is We have no idea how these massive stones, these monoliths, were put in place, moved, transported, and put anywhere. Um, and these are some of the ones that he's talking about here. So these 6 pieces of stone are fit incredibly tightly together, and they weigh something like 80 tons a piece. I mean, that's like 2 Boeing 747s.
Where was
Uh,
this, Tom?
this one is in a place not too far. This one's in Peru, and
Okay.
it's not too far from. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but I don't think it's Machu Picchu. But if you see, this is what's really cool about this is you see all those stones right there. All right, and now if you look in the background, there's a
Sure.
mountain.
Yep.
Those stones, and he'll talk about this later in the video, those stones were quarried on that mountain, which is like a mile higher than they are in altitude, and it's like 2.5 miles away, and it crosses a river. Very, very peculiar stuff. So,
Well,
anyway,
you know the biggest. Well, I mean, sticking on this one, just looking at this, the thing that blows my mind. So we're looking at 6 huge pieces of architecture right here,
right,
right?
that's granite right there.
Right. Okay. So each of those individual blocks were carved and chiseled from an even bigger piece
Precisely.
to get to get those
Precisely.
gigantic pieces.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah. So that's obviously not how the stone started.
Right.
It had to be carved down and put down. And the way that we would do it today is we would take a monster machine with a giant saw blade and about 100 gallons of water every 10 minutes because of all the dust and everything. And it would take us hours to saw this and shape this and get this into position. And according to general consensus, that's not what they were doing. We don't even know, according to scientific peer review, so to speak, they don't have a clue. They don't have a clue how it was possible. Some of them would
Why
say
is
as
it
far as
after
like
all
they
this
would push it
time?
down the hill, but it's like, well, then it breaks. It's like then you've got and this is cool. So you can see the different levels of construction here.
Yep.
So you've got one level of construction that are obvious massive stones, individual stones. And then you see a new civilization come in and try to repair and put pieces into place. And that's what all these little stones are here. It's a second set of civilizations, so to speak, coming in and trying to rebuild and reform and restructure. And that's what has happened a lot with a lot of these places. We give a lot of, I want to say it's in Peru, we give a lot of credit to the Incas. But the Incas, were around in 1000 AD. They're around 1,000 years ago. So, and they say that they found, well, according to their legend, it's the history. They say they found it. They found it and they rebuilt on top of it. And when you go and you look at places like this, it's pretty easy to understand that they found it. Second thing that's incredible about this mountain is 12,000 feet in the air. It's at an altitude of 12,000 feet. So, and the other one was obviously it was a mile higher. So that's another like 5,000 feet on top of it. Like where they quarried it from was 17,000 feet and then brought it down to 12,000 feet.
Okay, that's what that's where I was. My next question was like, where is the closest quarry to where they were pulling this material from? Like, how far did they have to travel with this?
If you go forward in the video just a little bit, you'll see a couple of pictures. Yeah, keep going just a little bit. See a couple of pictures, and there'll be like arrows and stuff. Might be another minute or two, but again, right now he's talking about like the different separations of building material, how you can tell that different civilizations were building in different places. And just look at this monster stones at 12,000 feet. I really wish I could remember what this place what this place was called. Like I said, I'm 99% sure that's not Machu Picchu. This stone here, and he goes into a mathematical breakdown. This one stone is something like 30 feet long, 10 feet high, 10 feet wide, and is the equivalent of 46 Toyota Camrys.
That's insane.
In weight. Like, it's like, how? How?
My brain cannot comprehend this.
You really can't, man. Like, to actually get your brain to wrap around that weight, it's like that's just impossibly heavy. Like, that'd be like me trying to deadlift 1,000 pounds. Same thing. Like, that's how my mind grasps.
And just to be clear, you know, these different the archaeologists and the scientists and engineers, there's a lot of guesses as to how they did stuff like this, but really nobody knows.
Nobody knows. Nobody has a clue. And you, man, if you want to, yeah, just let this bad boy play, and we can do like good old fashioned reaction video and chat shit as it goes. But yeah, man, like some of these things are just outrageous. And I think I think that's a picture of it from the side, and you can see like, and look how straight that is.
I was just literally look at the edges on this.
Right.
How do you do that?
You want to talk about edges, man? Wait till we get into Egypt. You want to talk about edges? There are no corners.
There are no 90 do that without modern day machinery.
You'd think so, but according to science, archaeologists, and everybody else, it was like pounded with stone and shaven down and using copper tools and sand. But yeah, that's what they're saying did it. It's something. So fast forward a little bit here. Yep. Keep going just a little bit more. You'll find a little bit more. Yeah, so he's chatting here. Okay, yeah, boom, freeze. So that's him standing next to, it might fast forward just a little bit, like, or just press play. An arrow will pop up pointing at that mountain. But yes, right there. That's where those stones were quarried from.
Wow.
So if you press play, he pulls a map up and shows you like geographically a geographic area, you know, an overview, and shows you, you know, where they were, the terrain that needed to be crossed. And like you were saying, those stones were bigger, transported, and then shaved down, cut down, and placed.
Right.
So like what kind of, like who did this and why? Like, why would you do the most difficult? Why would you do it in the most difficult way possible? This just doesn't, it's mind-boggling to me. That's that river that he was talking about. That's the valley that you've got to get through, the river over the top. And then those are everybody calls them the giant steps, but they're really terraces for vegetation and stuff.
Yeah. That's insane.
It's something, man. Like I said, it's 2.5 miles away and a mile higher in altitude. And they went up there, quarried monster stones, brought them back, and fixed them up for this sun temple or something. I want to say that's what it's called. I'm sure it's in this book, but we were talking about that earlier. I haven't gotten around to getting all the way through it.
it just makes me, you know, it really makes me wonder, you know, of all the advancements that we've made, I guess you could say as a human civilization. Well, I mean, they were human civilization then, but I guess in like the modern day era of the world, with all the advancements we have in technology and
yeah,
and that we can't even reproduce some of this stuff, not even
kind of a lot of it we can't redo, or we wouldn't even try. It'd just be too difficult. Like, you'd ask like stonemasons and stuff like that to do something, make something out of granite or diorite or something like that, something incredibly hard, and ask them how long they would do it and what kind of tools they would have to use. And it's diamond tip fucking power drills, and it would take days, you know. So anyway, go off on a brief little tangent here. Little side note, because you're talking about modern technology. Do you know where the first skyscraper was built?
Ooh, I do not.
Okay. Do you remember that video when I told you, if you're really curious about any sort of ancient anything here in the Americas, to look into the World's Fairs?
Yes.
Remember when I sent you that Chicago World's Fair of 1927 or whatever it was?
Yes.
Did you know that the first skyscraper was built in Chicago in 1927? I found that out today. It was the same, like right around the same year as the World's Fair. Was when the first skyscraper was built and opened up. And I also found out that the majority of people who were in Chicago when it was first founded and created were like essentially immigrants passing through. Like they weren't people who had stayed and established and so on and so on. Anyway, said all that to say this. Another subject we could dive into is those World's Fairs, man, because they're peculiar. They are peculiar.
No, that's definitely a whole huge topic that we can definitely dive into. And once again, same as last week, and my God, probably every episode, it's going to be literally impossible to break down every single thing, you know. But this is why we do this, because
it's fun to talk about.
Right, it's fun to talk about. So we also would love to get you guys and gals talking in the comment section. You know, tell us what you think. Talk about this stuff. You know, is there a particular place of interest that, you know, you look at and you're like, wow, I can't believe, you know, the Great Pyramids or Sphinx, or I don't know, you know, you're looking at one of these things and you're just like, I can't believe it. I know we've all seen 1,000 shows on the History Channel about it, but it still doesn't, some of it does not make sense to me because it's just all guesses. They're all very educated guesses, I'm sure, from people who have way more degrees than I'll ever have, and they have very educated guesses, but in the end of the day, we just we don't know.
They're guesses.
They're guesses.
And they're following a lineage of, we'll call it science, that is somewhat dogmatic.
Sure.
And yeah. So anyway, moving on. Let us know what you guys like to talk about, and what you guys like to investigate, and what confuses the hell out of you. Because one of the things that confuses the hell out of me are these old places that nobody can explain or to really give you any sort of comprehension on. And man, like I said, and I really want to let everybody know the video that we're watching. I want to say the guy's name is Jimmy Corsetti, and his YouTube page is Bright Insight, and he does a bunch of this stuff.
I'm actually gonna link this video. So whether you're looking at it on Facebook or YouTube, I'm actually gonna have the video link right down in the like the description. Perfect. So that way, because please go check out this guy's content. You know, watch the whole thing with the volume, with the sound. Watch the whole thing and just kind of,
he does a way better job of talking about it than I do, I assure you.
Right. You know, well, you know, that's arguable, Tom Shoaff, you know. That's arguable.
All right, let's move forward a little bit, man. This is so he starts, so this is when he starts equating like the weight, all right, of like how, so this is, so there's the Camry, and then it's something like 46 freaking Camrys to make up that one stone. And now just think about like a semi driving down the road carrying a trailer full of Camrys. And they fit usually what, like 8 to 10 cars on the back of a semi?
Yeah, one of those.
So you add in the semis, you're going to need 3 semis.
Right.
All condensed with Camrys on them.
Now, I did find, I just kind of scrounging around. Now, this pertains specifically to Stonehenge, but some people believe that there was like a similar apparatus um, they used for moving stones. Let's see.
Okay, but all right. So that just that image that I'm looking at, that looks like they're attempting to stand the stone, unless those are like fucking somehow walking legs or something. Those are like feet.
Yeah, yeah.
That
No,
like a gyroscope type thing.
right now this isn't. I probably wouldn't call this a apples kind of thing as what's going on here, but it's
Yeah,
kind of just kind of an
and that's
example of how these ancient civilizations really, you know for lack of a better
yeah, and
word, they
that's
figured some shit out.
yeah, and I'm not disputing that ancient ignorant people have been able to figure shit out. I mean, look at us. Look at the position that we're in right now. We are,
Right.
descendants of those ancient ignorant people. My viewpoint on it, so to speak, is okay. So these people are smart enough and educated enough to be able to study the stars, understand the equinoxes, understand the swivel of the earth, all right, understand the full solstice cycle, and then they're smart enough to be able to lay out a game plan on the ground to be able to diagram this entire thing. We're talking about Stonehenge here.
Yeah.
To be able to diagram this entire thing, all right, and they're smart enough to use stones that weigh hundreds of tons to do it and to quarry them from miles away. But you're telling me they were so stupid that they used wood paddles to move these monstrous stones?
Right.
Like it's like every part of them was so intelligent until it came to this part, and then it's like, no, they're just stupid hunter gatherers. But this whole thing is a celestial lineup. It works with eclipses, it works with this, it works with that. But no, they were smart enough to figure that out, but they were so dumb that they couldn't figure out anything more than ropes and levers. And it's like, nah, bro, that just doesn't jive with me. Anyway,
Oh,
that's my tangent on Stonehenge.
no, and you're right. And one thing, I tell you what, one thing I would absolutely love to dive into, which I think is connected to Stonehenge and the pyramids, and whether it be in Egypt or like the Incas and all these other different civilizations that built pyramids. There's been all these weird connections, like in reference to like these like energy zones
Yes.
all over the planet, and like
Yeah.
how did these people know, how would they know to build these massive structures on these very 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 specific sites?
Right.
And they
Right.
had no connection with each other. It's not like the
Well,
Incans are calling up
supposedly
the
they had
Egyptians
no
and be like, "Hey, pal,
connection.
we're gonna build on latitude, longitude
Right.
20 east, 5 degrees south. You guys got the other one?"
Right. Yeah. No, it's again very peculiar. And if you keep going in this, he gets off of these these big guys and he starts going on to what they call polygonal construction. All right. And polygonal construction you find in Peru, you find in Greece, you find in Italy, you find in Egypt, Cambodia, and here in certain spots in North America. Um, and it's mind-boggling because it's like it looks like these stones were like molded with putty and just kind of put into place and molded and shifted and put in. They're not square, they're not rectangles. Some of them are triangles, some of them are have 7 or 8 different angles or points on them. They're just, is this Easter Island when they're talking about moving the moai? Okay, never mind. There's some tall trees.
Let's see here. It's about Australia with the
The
eucalyptus
eucalyptus tree.
tree. Uh,
Oh, and that's in Peru.
Yeah.
Is this a different video? Is this a new video?
No, same video. Same video.
Huh.
I think they're talking about some of the material that they use to build.
Potentially used to move.
Yeah, to use some of
Okay.
these, to build some of these tools.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. No say, Jose. Oh yeah, there you go. So there's the polygonal construction. So
Yeah.
if you look at the picture, or actually no, now he's talking about the knobs. He's talking about on a lot of these stones, not all of the stones, but on a lot of them, they've got like right there, they've got these knobs on them,
Yeah.
and they don't know what they were for because it's not on all the stones. Like it's on that one, it's on the one next to it, but it's not on the two that are further down. So they're confused as to what it's for, and it's on big stones, it's
Possibly
on
just
small
aesthetic,
stones.
you know?
It potentially could be, but they're all over the place. And like I said, if you press play and let it run out, you'll see some of these other polygonal structures that he was talking about. You'll see the different places that they're in, but you'll also see these knobs. And I don't find much utility in these, but again, I don't fucking know anything about any of this stuff.
Right.
So like, I don't know how it was built. I don't know what it's made out of outside of granite. I don't know how it was done. I just know it's peculiar as shit. That's the best way that I can describe it. Plain and simple.
Yeah, like
Yeah, still
these
talking about these now.
shapes, like you're right. I mean, like it doesn't make sense. It almost looks you would assume, especially if you're having to hand chisel granite, that whatever you're doing has a purpose, meaning like you're not just doing something because you might think it looks cool. There's probably a utility behind it, right?
Right.
So what the
And
hell
like
were
the only
these
thing that
for?
I can think is like rope, like maybe attachments for rope or something. Like if you're using rope and we're being primitive, maybe that's where the things lock into place. But again, it's not on all of them.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't have the slightest fucking clue. It's a peculiar thing. If you go back towards like the middle of the video, we'll work on some of this polygonal stuff here. Okay, maybe not. Yeah, he's still talking about the same old stuff. Okay, then keep it cruising a little. I want to get into this polygonal nonsense, man, because it's definitely something. Who's this character? Oh, yeah, you start talking about Graham Hancock and stuff like that. Huh.
Okay, so they think they're okay, so just a ramp and pulling it on like a
Yeah, but here's the thing. For the angle of the ramp, it would need to be bigger than the pyramid to get a respectable angle. And what did they build the ramp out of? Like, was the ramp built out to stone?
well, you can see. So what is that? Oh man, like I mean, it's just like your basic pulley system, right? I mean, it's just
Yeah, that's what that looks like.
a basic. So what happens is like they leverage. You see the rope around the object, and then you got these guys back here. It's wrapped around this post or whatever
so
that
those
is.
guys are pulling down, and the guys on the top are pulling up, and you're using reverse leverage from 4 different points to carry weight. But here's what I think is fucking hilarious about this. Is that's a big ass stone, and they got, what is that? 4 times 4 is 16. 16 guys pulling this? I don't know, bro. Maybe 1,600.
The gradient of the slope would be up to 20%. So, okay. So, at least with this illustration, this does help me sort of visualize. I mean, it's very basic, but me looking at it with this kind of illustration, at least I can, picture. All right.
But okay, so check this out. So look at it says earth ramp grew with pyramid. Okay.
So it would have to keep angling up as they
Which
built
which
up the
makes
pyramid.
the angle steeper, or you make the ramp longer, which if you're making it out of stone means you
Sure.
need more stone. And if you're making the ramp steeper, one, you need more stone, but two, you need more manpower to pull that up. Now, secondly, if you're building it this way, you have to build it layer by layer.
It does
Because
say the gradient would be up to 20%. So I imagine what you're saying is correct. It probably just extends out longer so it can keep the same.
right, but if you do that, now you need more stone to continue that, and the ramp would have to be like a 20% grade to go 426 feet in the air. Like that would need to be like a mile long.
Yeah,
And
I'm not very good at math, but like,
like that. I I'm not great at math either. I'm not going to pretend
it's
like I
hard
know
to
exactly what I'm saying.
visualize because
But that's it. Like, so think about something 425 feet in the air. All right.
right,
And you have to maintain a 20% grade, which you got, 40, well, here, 90 degrees, 45 degrees, cut that in half, 20 degrees. All right.
right.
So you're going at 20 degrees. Okay. That's how long, and that's what, 6 inches or whatever, how big my hand is, we'll say.
Right.
Okay. And that covers about 3 inches.
Right.
All right. Now multiply that however many times you fucking have to get to 425 feet. But I'm telling you, it's going to be a hell of a lot bigger than the pyramid itself. And where's the ramp?
Right.
Where's the stones? Where's the leftover product? If this was something that legitimately, we'll talk about the pyramid specifically. If this was something that legitimately happened 5,000 years ago when it was built, where's the leftovers? It's not there. It's not there. Like, here's another thing that a lot of people may or may not know is that the Great Pyramid, as it stands right now, is granite. It was cased in limestone. It used to be like bright white or silver. The dating of the pyramid goes back to the stone somehow or another, the weathering of the stone, and then the carbon dating of the things found inside of the pyramid itself. But it's like they're dating the weathering of that stone. What about how long it had the caps on top of it? What about how long it was cased in limestone? Like,
correct me if I'm wrong, Tom. You cannot carbon date stone. So like you said,
carbon date stone. You can
so
date stone.
Right, but the only way they can carbon date something is if whatever artifacts they find inside the building.
Yes, it has to be carbon based. That's why it's called carbon dating, because it has to be carbon based. Yes,
right.
So if they go into the great, pyramid,
organic in layman's terms, it has to be something organic. Yeah,
precisely. So if they go into the any tomb and they find a sarcophagus and they open it up and there's a body in there, they can date it. If there's a porcelain jar in there, they can't date it. If the porcelain jar holds something that had like fruit or meat or something like that in there, they can date it. So, just it depends on what's being held in the vessel. But again, that's another argument when it comes to the dating of, we'll say, the Great Pyramid, for example. Or the Sphinx, because everybody wants to talk about the Sphinx. The Sphinx has been rebuilt, redated, and reconfigured a handful of times, but the pit that it is in, we'll call it a quarry. The quarry that the Great Sphinx sits in has clear and obvious water erosion to it.
Right.
The Cairo's been dry. There hasn't been rain in Cairo for 5,000-6,000 years.
Right.
And it took thousands of years.
I did see that
water downpour to create that weather erosion, which means that maybe not the Sphinx was there, but at least the quarry or the pit in which the enclosure in which the Sphinx sits inside of has been there for a tremendous amount of time.
Or Egypt could have been subject to one of these, big floods.
Well, look at where Cairo is. look at where Egypt is. And if you go back to the last episode when we talked about the flood that clearly ripped through the Sahara Desert.
Right.
I mean, anybody who's, got a couple of minutes, pull up your Google Earth, just go to your Google Maps and span out to the world view, hit the satellite image button, slide over to the Sahara Desert, and scroll in and just look at it. And if you don't think the Sahara Desert looks like the bottom of a riverbed, you've never seen a riverbed. Because from the northeast corner to the southwest edge, it is clear water erosion ripping through this whole thing.
Right.
And where's Cairo? Where's Egypt? Right on the northeast corner of Africa, right there across from Italy.
Right.
Yeah. So, like, yeah, man, it's feasible that something massive happened. Like, we were talking about this a little earlier, with Easter Island.
Yep.
And a lot of people they think of the moai and they think of the heads. And they think it's just the head.
Yep.
Like, no, man, there are bodies underneath those, like literally buried in feet and feet and feet of dirt.
And really, the best way to explain that or to picture that, okay, think about how big the heads are. The bodies to those heads are proportionate to the size of the heads. I mean, just meaning that
I'm sure you can Google image right now.
Does that make sense? I guess to people. Yeah, no, I definitely will. I'm gonna look that up real quick, Tom.
Yeah, that's one of those things, man. It's so mind-boggling, and it's so irrefutable as far as confusing. Like, you mean to tell me that you legitimately know how this was done? Another thing about Easter Island is it's in the middle of fucking nowhere. Like, it's 2,100 miles from Peru. Like, in the middle of nowhere.
The middle of nowhere. Okay, so now before I get to this, so these are what kind of everybody knows is,
those are the moai.
The Easter Island heads. Okay, this is what everybody kind of pictures when you think about it. This is what they think about. All right.
Right.
So this is what me and Tom are referring to here. So now I believe this is.
You scroll up.
This particular picture, I believe, is a.
That looks like a video.
Yeah, it does look like a video.
Oh yeah, there's another Bright Insight video.
Yeah, those bright side people are.
Yeah, he's all about it. You can find actual pictures, like actual excavation pictures of people who have dug these things up. And
and this right here really gives you an idea, though, of how massive.
Yeah, so right there next to your mouse, just to the left. Right there. Click that. Boom.
Right, yep.
Excellent example right there, guys. So you got a fucking 12-foot head, and then you've got a 20-foot body that's just been buried in mud. Like, how? Like, go to that picture, second from the top, third to the right. Down. Where are you? I don't even see your mouse anymore. Okay, no, up and then to the right. Yes. Boom. Click, look at those. Right. Things are buried in mud. Like, it looks like a landslide happened. And if you go on like Wikipedia or something, they'll say that it was because of deforestation, that they were building all of these magnificent stones, structures, and they needed things to move them with. So they deforested the entire population of the island. And that was what was caused like these landslides. And that was what buried all of the moai. That doesn't jive with me. Like, Easter Island's not that big of an island. How many fucking trees were on this thing?
Right.
Where did they get the stone from? That's a great question, because it's an island, remember?
Right.
Like, where'd the stone come from?
Well, I believe, and I could be wrong, I believe I had watched a video where they talked about, they think that possibly where Easter Island was, when it was one of the other supercontinents, there was, somehow like the rock, or it was closer, it was close to an area like I guess like a quarry or something,
Yeah.
what
Well, you know
everything
what?
was.
I'm actually, yeah. I was being a little ignorant there. There are still moai that are being quarried on Easter Island. Like, there are still, like, because they carved them out like on the rock itself, and then they cut them out from the back,
Right.
pull them off,
Right.
supposedly. Then there are still ones like that, now that I'm thinking about it. But yeah, to go back to what you were talking about, the ancient civilization or ancient continent or whatever. Yeah, a lot of people think that, or there's speculation that Hawaii and Easter Island were all part of the same continent, which
Sure.
was MU. And that's another peculiar thing to think about. Um, because I mean, we were talking about last week about, or the Adam and Eve situation and that
Right.
whole story, and to think about the world kicking over sideways, but the oceans continuing to turn the way that they turned, and the wind continuing to turn the way that it turned. Like, it's quite feasible that something could cover a continent. I mean, why the hell not?
It just it's crazy to think too, like obviously these things, they're not connected, but they are connected, right? In maybe in like a deeper, grander scheme, like again with the technology to get this stuff, and the tools that they use. How were they, because it almost seems like these different civilizations were able to maybe share knowledge, share information. There's
Right.
not much
That's
evidence of that.
right. Well, there's zero, according to, oh hell. And this is, if you guys go watch the Bright Insight video, uh he talks about this. According to science and history, before 1492, like, we didn't even know about the Americas. We didn't have good transportation across the oceans,
Right.
things like that. Like, we weren't a worldwide civilization until that time, until the 1500s roughly. Then we became a
Right.
worldwide civilization.
Right.
And a point that he makes in that video is, he says that in today's day and age, we've got civilizations that are very different from each other all over the world. We've got, here in the United States, we've got Russia, we've got China, we've got Japan, we've got Cambodia, we've got North Korea, South Korea, everywhere in Africa. You've got
Sure.
all of these different civilizations.
Sure.
But every time you go to a metropolis in any of those countries, you always see skyscrapers.
Mm.
It's what you see. You see monstrous buildings and skyscrapers. And his point on this worldwide civilization that was potentially lost due to some great cataclysm is that you go to every continent on the planet, and there are pyramids. Every single one. They're all over the place.
Do you think maybe these are, so you just touched on that, where even nowadays, like you said, you go to the bigger cities, there's bigger skyscrapers in every big city, in every state, in every country, in every continent. All right, there's these giant ass buildings, skyscrapers, whatever you want to call them. Do you think that it was more of a like a stamp on, hey, we're coming up in the world, we have these structures in our town, come here, we're we're making it, we're advanced, we have structure, we have this, we have that. You think, is there a chance, you think, because like you said, it's all these weird different places, because I can't think, there was no communication, so we know that this wasn't a communication thing, but maybe in their
Would say you
own.
say you say we know that, but we don't know that.
Well,
Like, we
no,
don't know.
no, you're right. You're right. We don't know.
We
No,
assume as much, you know, we
but
assume as much.
I think it's probably right. We don't know. No, no. But it seems safe. How else would they have communicated?
Well, it's like, what else were they doing?
And not just that, how could they communicate? Because the written language was a bunch of fucking symbols and squiggly lines,
Well, that's
and
what
it was
we think.
different for
Well,
each civilization.
but we don't even. So one, like there, so there's a lot of things that you just hit on.
Yeah.
One, we don't know what their writing was, and we don't like for sure. We're not 100% convinced. The reason I say that is because we don't have a lot of it. Like, I can think of two events off the top of my head that have absolutely destroyed history as we know it. And that's the burning of the Library of Alexandria, which millions of scrolls
Right.
lost
Right.
because somebody had a fucking bad day.
I actually kind of forgot about that. That would actually be a good that'd be a good topic one day, just to
that would be another good one to dive into. Yeah, the Library of Alexandria. And then when the Spanish invaded Central America and South America,
the conquistadors.
Right. When the conquistadors came through, they made it a mission to burn every piece of parchment they found, everything that involved the ancient religions, everything that involved anything that it had to do
with. They looked at them as like pagans, right? The conquistadors were like really religious.
They were Christians,
right? Yeah.
They were Christians,
and they looked at everything else as paganism, and we have to get rid of it, and it must be destroyed.
Yeah, it needs to be destroyed. It's false idols, false gods, so on and so forth. Right. So they came in and they destroyed everything. So again, what we have left over when it comes to like Mayan culture and Aztec culture and things like that are how we interpret it. It's how we as our evolution has taken this human being in knowledge, science, understanding, language, all that other good stuff. It's how we interpret it. But who knows if they thought the same way that we think. And I'll give you an excellent example is illiterate people who aren't literate, don't know how to read or write. They're not dumb. They're
just not educated
in the general sense. They think very differently than we do. It's just plain and simple. And you can hear stories about this from like Inuit tribes and tribes up in like Alberta and things like that, where there are a vast majority of these, we'll call them illiterate tribes of people or communities of people. And they're very smart. They can make it through their day-to-day life, but they experience things differently. They dream differently. They live differently. Like,
right.
I can remember a story right offhand about a guy who he's an artist and he made sculptures. And anytime he would get stuck or confused on a sculpture and like how he would present it, he would just go to sleep. And in his dreams, he would see his ancestors and he would talk to them and he would communicate with them and they would give him new information on his sculptures. And then he would go into, back into his art and things like that.
That sounds like some DMT stuff.
It very well could be, but here's where I'm getting with this is as human beings, as 21st century human beings, our brains are categorized in certain ways because of vocabulary, because of things like time, because of things like schedules, because of things like books and different, science. Like our brains are just categorized in certain ways. So there's only certain ways that we can look at the world. We can't help it. We don't know what we don't know, plain and simple. And you take somebody who hasn't grown up with that, we'll call it ideology, whose brain doesn't function that way, it's going to function in a very different way in which we just simply don't understand. So to bring this thing full circle to what you were talking about is our interpretation on their language and stuff is ours. It's how we would interpret it. But what if they didn't, like you were saying, what if they didn't use language and vocabulary and writing the same way we did? I mean, look at the Egyptians and their hieroglyphs. Like one hieroglyph tells a story. If you
Right.
look at the Mayans and their stuff, like a lot of the different hieroglyphs don't represent sounds as we would think of, like words make sounds. They represent sounds as like wind blows
Sure.
and so things like that. So like different
Sure.
hieroglyphs, they represent whole scenes of things.
Sure.
So it's like, again, our understanding and our conception of what we're looking at is broken down. The only way we can break it down, it's because that's the only way our brain has learned how to work in this century. But you go back many centuries with different educations and different, we'll call them technologies, who fucking knows what people were capable of.
And by the way, that's very beautifully put, by the way. It's almost like, it almost makes you wonder if you were to grab somebody from, like I guess a smart person from that era, bring them into this era, maybe they would think we're all a bunch of idiots. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's very possible, because like you said, the way that we have been educated and grown up and you know like you said, with our vocabulary and everything, the way that we have been raised up, and the way that our mind, just the way most people's minds work, it's just different.
100%.
Doesn't mean necessarily mean that we're right, we're wrong. It's just different.
Yeah. And I can't even begin to think how drastic or how different things could have been as far as our mental conception of the world and reality. If technology would have advanced further through the Industrial Revolution. And what I mean by that is, once the Industrial Revolution hit, and once well, let's go back a step further. We'll say the Renaissance into the Industrial Revolution. We focused the entirety of our energy and our ideology on forging one form of power, and that's fire, essentially. Like
strength,
fire and electricity. It's like that's those are the only, like, we figured out, okay, if like fire gives us warmth and it gives us energy. Okay, how can I make a bigger and better fire? And then eventually we made bigger and better bombs and bigger and better electronics. And we figured out, okay, I don't need a fire if I can just have electricity. I can't help but think about how much different, about the different avenues in which technology or the human race could have advanced if we looked into other technologies or other forms of power, we'll call them, or so on. Like, a lot of people are into like frequencies. Like, I don't know if you ever seen frequencies play over sand and water and things like that. Like frequency.
Like Tesla was really big into like frequencies and things.
He was all about 3, 6, and 9. Man, he said, if you want to understand the universe, think of
3, 6, and 9.
Of frequencies and something else. Magnetism and frequency, I think, is what he said. Tesla was something. I don't know enough about him to be able to give you any sort of educated opinion, but
but you know what? That's a whole nother topic, and that would be an interesting conversation. I think that's probably a good place to kind of end this show, Tom, because like you said, I don't think we're just barely scratching the surfaces. And again, as we get through and kind of do more topics and hopefully, I think we talked about, we're going to even try to like invite, maybe some expert guests and kind of bring people in. And
I would love to get that guy on we're talking about. I haven't done my due diligence yet, but I'll get around to it.
No, 100%. And like you said, as the show begins to, kind of see which way the wind takes it. And once again, I know we've already talked about it. Please give us your suggestions, leave comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, all that good stuff. We're going to go ahead and leave you guys right here. For Tom and myself, that's all we got for this week.
Thanks for showing up.